Hi, my name is Erika, I'm a knitter from Brazil and you are watching my 4th podcast episode. Today, I hope you have your beverage of choice because we're in for a ride. We have a lot to talk about. I end up always having a lot to talk about in the podcast episodes because I keep wanting to wait until I finish the stuff that I'm going and, well, then we pile up stuff. Like today we have 3 finished objects, 4 whips and 2 swatches to talk about, so let's dive in. My first finished object is what I'm wearing. Here you can see it entirely, the crochet trims in the waist. Let me see if I can show you the back. Yes, the lacy back. And it's probably a surprise that this is my first finished object because in the last podcast episode I hadn't done any work in it and suddenly I appear with it ready. Well, the thing is, after I finished my colette, this was my project in a larger needles. It was in 4mm, even though it was in wooden 4mm needles, it still advanced much quicker than the other ones. It's the Papillon Blouse by Maiden Knitwear, Savannah Gerlach, and I gained this pattern as a reward because I test knitted for her last year. I had always eyed this pattern since the first time I saw it on Ravelry, and I wanted to knit it, and now I have it. Since the first time also I had envisioned it in a dark blue, and I think it was a good choice. And about the process of knitting, I have to say to you that there weren't any issues. The one issue I had was yarn chicken. Yarn chicken is a common theme in my knitting. You will see that it wasn't the only project today in which I played yarn chicken, and in this one I lost it. I had this extra yarn, this scrap yarn from my crochet granny square dress, and it was sufficient for me to make the 2 butterfly wings here and half of the waist trim. No, at first I made the lace trim in the back to tie it. The thing is, I misread the pattern in this aspect. It was supposed to be made in the main color. However, in the original pattern, she has to make an I-cord to go through the lacing in the back and tie it with the I-cord. I decided not to make an I-cord because I had 2 pieces of ribbon, actual ribbon, not very big ones like this size. They were left over from my granny square dress as well. The fit of this top is amazing. How wouldn't it be if it's made to measure, you know? The pattern is quite bare bones. When I asked for it, the designer almost advised me against it. I think that compared to her other patterns, which are very detailed, it isn't the preference of most people. She doesn't give you even the amount of stitches to cast on to start, because you depart from your own gauge. She has there a combination of yarn thickness and needle size, and you make a gauge swatch and she gives you instructions. It's almost a recipe, but it worked. She uses a fingering weight. My one is cotton thread held double. I'm not sure how it's showing in the video, but it's quite see-through. I don't mind because I have a proper colored underwear and it's nothing scandalous. Maybe with the fingering weight it would already be a little bit see-through. With the cotton thread held double it is much more. This here, she uses the fingering weight too, and she uses a 4mm hook. I work it with the cotton thread held single, so hers is more substantial in the sample. Mine is more flimsy, a little bit more delicate too, because it's like doily thickness, and the hook I used was 275mm. And in the bottom, I lost the yarn chicken in the middle of the waistband. I had bought some very tiny spools of cotton thread to make vintage colors. 3, I think, little spools in white colors to make those colors, and I picked the white one and I use it to finish this. I still have a little bit of yarn there, but I think it's not enough for a color anymore. I think I used half of the little spool, but it was worth it because it's done. I really like it. The only thing I changed on purpose was the rate of the creases here, because I'm not very tall. I'm 1 meter 60 centimeters, 61 to be precise, 61.5 centimeters, that's my height. Although my torso is very long, most of it is between my waist and my hips. This top portion is not very lengthy, and I didn't have that much length to have the crease for the waist go too slowly. You are supposed to decrease a certain amount of stitches every other round, and I started by doing it Then I changed to decreasing it every round. It's almost a compound waist shaping, so to say. And I think it turned out very nice. Even the change of the decrease, I think you can see it's here. It's happening here in the side. The change of the decrease make it very interesting too. Made it very adequate to me. It's a pattern that is very easy to modify. It's made to modify it, so you can adapt it to make it proper to your size. Something that I have picked from Savannah's patterns is that she considers the possibility of waist shaping for growing too. When we talk about waist shaping, we think about decreasing for the waist. That's not always the case. Sometimes you have to increase for the waist, either if you're going from bottom up or top down. So she gives you those instructions. You need this top down in a rectangle with or without waist shaping. This is your choice. Then you pick up for the straps. You graft them in a place there and then you make the crochet trims. Quite simple, quite straightforward, 10-10 for this project. Of course, some things to note is there is a lot of curling here in the border because it's just stocking. You can try to add I-cord, I think, but I have another project that was finished with I-cord and I didn't love very much the effect, so I'm not going to do this. There is one thing from this project that is a little bit troublesome. It doesn't stay in place. I'm here because they have attached the straps to my bra, and this today it's not in my earring because I can't, so it's here and it's also holding the strap to my bra strap because otherwise it falls very easily. And I have measured the straps to make it according to another project that I have that have straps in a good size. Didn't work. I think maybe because it's cotton and it was blocked, even though it dried flat, it might have grown a little bit. I considered that and I needed a little smaller than the straps from my other top. And even so, it still falls. In the pattern, she says you can make something to kind of prevent it, but attaching it to your underwear because she says that it might fly with the winds. I didn't do anything to the top yet to prevent it apart from this attempt, which is very temporary, but it's working, so that's it. There is just one more thing to talk about this pattern is that I have starched the lace. I have made a starching product out of amido de milho. I will place the name in English here with water, and I have dyed this. I tried not to dye the main body so the main body wouldn't be stiff, but I have dyed the lace. All the lace into this water. When it was blocking, I had blocked the rest. I have starched this at the same time, and when it was almost dry, I have ironed it. And I have ironed the main body too. It was good to make the edges a little flatter. It's cotton, I don't fear ironing cotton, but I also always place some fabric between the iron and the clothing. That's it for this project. Let's go to the next one. Before we go to our next big finished object, let me just pass by this one, which is a crochet bandana that I made. It was made based on a pattern by Escott, which is a free pattern in her blog. I will leave the link below. I have already made one of these before. You can learn about it in my Everything I Ever Crocheted video. I have fixed the mistake I made in the other one because this pattern uses British crochet terms. And in the other one, I have started reading it as if it was using American crochet terms. So I made a very thick edge here because she asks us to make double crochet, but British double crochet is American single crochet. And I was making American double crochet, and it was like that. So in this one, I fixed it. However, another yarn chicken. You can see that it's missing the very last triangle, the very last pineapple here. It was a leftover yarn. I just had picked this yarn because I wanted to use the cone for another yarn management issue. And I did that, and this was lying in my desk all the time, and I was thinking, I have to use this yarn. And then the project that I was able to do with the amount that I supposed I had was this one. But apparently I didn't have enough even for this one, and I left it like that. And it's cute, you can see here. I really like this pattern, I should say. It's a very nice crochet pattern. It's fun. I made it in one afternoon. See, it's not so disgraceful without the tip, but if you know there was supposed to be a tip, maybe you find it strange. But you can wear it, you see. And I was tying my hair with it the other day, just when I had finished it, and my sister passed by the one for which I made all of the other crochet bandana, and she was like, oh, a crochet bandana, I think I want it. And I said, well, have it. Maybe I will make for myself others from this same pattern, and this time correct. Poor thing, I think she deserves one correct as well. Her birthday is in next month, and yesterday she came here. Don't you have a black thread, for example? I said, yes, I have black thread. She said, couldn't you make a crochet bandana for me in black? Then I said, okay, I will make one. She asked for two, one black, one green, for her birthday, and I will make them. And I have this leftover yarn from my Hobbiton Vest Junior, and I think it would be just enough. I asked her if she needed to be crochet. She is more drawn to crochet, but she said it can be knitting. I can use my creativity in this. The only thing is she doesn't want it to be a fluffy yarn. She doesn't like a fluffy yarn. But all that I have for this is cotton. So I will make two of these for her. And this was something that wasn't in my plans, but it will enter now in my autumn plans and maybe among my deadlines for May. Let's go to the next and final finished object of today. My last finished object of today is my June Top Light by Petite Knit. Here you can see it entirely, the I-cord edges. Here and here, all the edges are I-cord edges. In the back it's supposed to be lower than in the front. It's not very much bra friendly. What I can say about that project, it's not my favorite. I hope it will grow on me. It was relatively smooth sailing. I had some hiccups at the start, about which I talked in my last podcast episode. I had cast on for the small size, and then I figured out my gauge was wrong and I cast on for the extra small. When I finished the top, it had exactly 6 centimeters of negative ease, as it was supposed to have. I knitted the extra small to get a small size because of my wrong gauge. She asked for 28 stitches in 10 centimeters. I had 26 stitches in 10 centimeters. And when I knitted it, I considered back then to go down another stitch repeat, because her sizes, they are separated by increments of the same amount of stitches, and by my calculations I would have the size that I needed if I subtracted from the smallest size another such repeat, so to say, or such amount of stitches. And I think maybe I should have done it because, well, my swatch was blocked. When I tried it on during the knitting process, you can see here, it was fitting perfectly. When I finished it, it was fitting perfectly because it had the exact 6 centimeters of negative ease it was supposed to have. I just measured it now after blocking it, and it's now with only 1 centimeter of negative ease. So I suppose this isn't even the fit it was supposed to have. The length is the length from the pattern. I knitted everything else to pattern. I knitted the length from the smallest size. I'm not against the length. You can see it finished. It's not my favorite either, but it doesn't finish very away from the top of my bottoms, so it's a nice length. I played a hard case of yarn chicken here too, but this time I won and the other two I lost. I will place a picture of what I have left. These 3 I-cords here were made with my swatch, and I then have left only this very little amount of yarn, which will be just yarn for provisional cast-ons and this kind of thing. I think it's less than 1 gram. So it was exactly 1 skein of honey yarn, cotton yarn, for my size at least. It's not a bad top, but it doesn't do anything for me, you know. I'm not used to knitted tops without waist shaping. The I-cord, I wanted it to be more streamlined. You're not seeing it here because I have managed to keep it in place by now, but most of the time it keeps falling. It doesn't stay in place. Also, I did make everything to pattern, all the measurements that were meant to be. I checked with other tops, but it still looks like it is a little too loose. Maybe this I can fix. I'm thinking about going with elastic thread and going through the neckline and through the armholes with the elastic thread to cinch them in, to hold them in place, and maybe the top will be then more wearable and pleasant for me. But to be honest, it's a pretty wearable top. I wouldn't make it again. It took me a lot. It was made in 2.5mm needles, while I could be making a vintage top in 2.5mm needles with much more interest in visual interest or interest for my fingers and my brain for the process. Not this. This is the kind of thing we buy from shops and that's it. The only advantage is that it's 100% cotton, so I'm glad that I have it now. I think it will be pretty fresh. It will be excellent to wear in the summer. I give her that. But yes, petite knit patterns hardly ever excite me. And that's another example of that. I think it was the right project for the yarn. I don't know that I would want another project with this light pink, but I wouldn't knit it again. I recommend the pattern, I guess. It has a very beautiful scoop neck. I will give her that. It's very detailed how you do it, and she goes through it step by step, row by row, to create this perfect smooth transition, you know, because it's very easy to make a v-neck, not so easy to make something that is rounded like that. It's bottom up, so you are knitting miles of stockinette in a 2.5mm needles. You can't see the end of it. It was my waiting room knitting and also my TV knitting. When I watched movies, I would knit in it, and that's how I got through the body. I wouldn't otherwise. The straps and the I-cords, I made all of them last weekend, and they were at least more entertaining. They are most of the pattern. The PDF has 12 pages. As I said, it's row by row. It's excellent for beginners. And now let's go to my whips, and we will stop in the middle of the whips to make a quick recap of my summer knitting plans, and then go to my swatches. My first whip we have today is I wanted this to be a finished object. I wanted it so hard to be a finished object. This was a trouble, this was a doozy, this was my nightmare and my headache of my summer knits. My lace wave Cami. You see it like that, and it's so innocent. It has a lot of progress. It's almost ready. You can see. I think I have another repeat here, and I think I will try to get the other repeat. It's not very big. I don't know if it will even hit my waist. I was knitting on it even this morning, wanting to have it ready for you, but I couldn't wait anymore, otherwise I would have too much to talk about. So yes, this project, in the last podcast episode I already had shown to you, it gave me some trouble with swatching. I swatched 4 times for it, then I cast on. That's what I showed you in the last one, and I said I intended it to be the one that I would finish first, because it's short, it's super short, I don't have much yarn, it's kind of an addictive pattern, you always want to get to the next repeat, it's not the smallest size needle, and I attempted to finish it first. I spent one entire weekend crazily knitting on it. At first, that cast on that I showed you, it didn't remain, because after I had finished like 2 repeats, I saw that it was twisted. I had twisted it, not even in the cast on, I had twisted it making one lace. And then I had to rip it off, everything, start again. I started again, I knitted crazily until my hands were aching, and I finished the yarn. And I got only 13 repeats, which is about this much here, you know. And I thought, wow, it's really a bralette. I wanted it to be a short top, cropped top, but it's really a bralette. But what can I do? I cast off and I tried it on. And you can see here what happened. It was way too large. You won't expect that a pattern will be too large if you swatched for it 4 times. You think you made sure that you have the right size. To be honest, I had read the project from other people who knitted it. They didn't knit it before me. They started more or less at the same time, because I knitted just when it was released. Later on, I came back and I read the other people who had already finished their projects and most of them say that it runs large. They knitted the recommended size for them, and they also got it too large with a lot of positive ease. You can see how mine was, and I hadn't even blocked it. It has viscose, it will grow a lot, at least I'm counting on it. So I measured how much I had left over here, clipped it, it was 3 repeats. So when my anger vanished, I started again, subtracting those 3 repeats. Then in the stitch counts of the pattern, it made me fall between the sizes extra small and extra small. I didn't want to go down to the extra small because it would be too small, but the extra small would be still large. So I cast on that and I knitted it, and wouldn't you know, I twisted it again. That this time in the cast on. So I made 1 repeat and I noticed that I twisted it and I ripped it out, and sighing deeply I cast on again and I shoved it in the bag and I finished the other projects, these ones that you saw today. And just then I decided to pick it up because I'm stubborn as heck, and I was really envisioning this combination of yarn and pattern because honestly it's beautiful. The stitch pattern works so well with the yarn. And then I picked it up for the last time. Finally it just went smoothly and I knitted it a lot since the last weekend. And I'm almost finished. I still have this. I will try to add 2 repeats or at least 1, and then the swatch will make the small cups that she has here, just the start of the straps, and the straps, which are spaghetti straps. I think the swatch will be enough for all of this, and I will surely have it ready for the next time. Editing Erika here, just to show you it's done after all. Here it is. With all fairness, the next whip is something that I wouldn't have it finished for you today, but I was trying to delay filming this episode so I could have shown you more of it, which is my temperature blanket. As I have shown you in my autumn and winter knitting plans, I have bought the yarn for the background, and I have added the 3rd color to a lot of this, so you can see them here. Here with me I have 10 or 11 from February. I'm adding the 3rd color to them backwards. I have already completed the month of March, and I have to finish February, January, and then join it all together. It increases considerably the size, you know, which means that when I join the 3 months that I already have, I will have a sizable blanket already. Maybe something enough or almost enough to cover my bed, which is a single bed, so it will probably be covered by these 3 or almost there, and I just imagine then the size of the final blanket. Not bad. I have, however, run into a problem here again, which is that the orange finished again. I had already bought a second skein of orange and of red. The red I'm still using, but I ran out of orange again, and I have a very fearsome suspicion that this orange is not produced anymore. This specific colorway, Lava Falls, I have been searching for it in the internet and I am not finding. The yarns from this company, Penguin, they are not sold in more than one place in my city. It's where I bought it. And the last time I went there, I got their last skein. I will contact them and see if they have an order. If they don't, I don't know where I will find it, because I knew that it was finishing. When I bought this one, I checked the website to see if they had that colorway, and they didn't. And it is one of the largest yarn stores in the country, the one from which I bought this one, Bazar Horizonte. I think there are 2 or 3 that are the largest in the country, that sell to the entire country via the internet, and they didn't have the Lava Falls. I hope it is not a discontinued colorway, because in many places where I found it, it was out of stash, and in some places I didn't find it at all. Let's hope it won't be a problem, but I will talk to you about it in the next one. The last whip that has been coming with me since the summer is my 2-ply cabled cardigan, which has been swatched, started, unraveled, and I have finally swatched again for it and started it again. So let's recap. This is a pattern that I am making with unraveled yarn. You can see in this video how I got the yarn and unraveled it, and I have swatched at first for it with this, I think it's 3.5mm needles, this swatch, and I loved the stitch pattern. I didn't love the color so much. I think I'm going to dye it, but not now. However, I didn't get gauge. So when I freed up my 2.5mm needles, I have swatched as instructed by my friend Petra Manus, that I could attempt to swatch it in stockinette because many vintage patterns assume you will swatch in stockinette. So assuming that's the case here, since there weren't instructions to knit specifically this stitch pattern, I knitted this swatch. You can be proud of me. I think it's 15 centimeters by 10, and I got gauge. At first I thought I didn't got gauge because the gauge in vintage patterns is given per inch, sometimes per centimeter, but in this case it's per inch because it's an Australian pattern maybe, or a British pattern, and they used the imperial system. At first I measured 10 centimeters. The issue is 1 inch is equivalent to 2.5 centimeters, more or less, and 4 inches is equivalent more or less to 10 centimeters. Pay attention to this more or less. When I measured 2.5 centimeters, I had 8 centimeters in those 2.5, which was exactly the gauge. When I measured 10 centimeters, however, I got 29 stitches, when I was supposed to get 32 if I were to take into consideration that it was 4 inches. 8 times 4, 32. So I was confused, and I made a post in a vintage group at Facebook. I said, how do you think people measured it back then? Did they do it like us, that we measure 10 centimeters and then we divide by 4 and then we get the gauge per inch or per centimeter? Or do you think they would measure 1 inch? Most people say that they don't know what was done, but the safest would be to do the 10 centimeters thing. So I was like, maybe I didn't get gauge after all, but I would try to make it even so, because I almost don't have other needles to size down to. Then someone said, when they ask for inches, I measure inches, I don't measure centimeters. And I thought, but it's the same. But then I looked it up, and it isn't exactly the same. 4 inches is equal to 10.16 centimeters. So it means that in 4 inches you have a little more than 10 centimeters. And I have one tape measure that has centimeters in one side and inches in the other. So I searched for this one and I measured 4 inches exactly with the inches side, and it gave me 32 stitches in 4 inches. I got gauge at last. You can see that it's a firm fabric. I thought that this one was a little flimsy for what they wanted here, right? But this one is quite firm, which I think is nice for a cabled cardigan. Then I cast on, but I didn't cast on the back. The other time I cast on the back and it was this many stitches. Ripping that all off was a bit heavy, so I decided I was going to cast on one sleeve. If it went wrong, the disappointment would be less. So that's what I did. This is just the cast on here, and this, I think it was 2mm needles, which would be the one for the ribbon then, since I'm using the 2.5 for the main body. However, I found out with my gauge that it is 2.25, 2.25. So I will see if I have a 2-1 and transfer. If not, I will follow with this one. What can I do? And that's it. It just started, established it, and it will be my whip for the next month. And I hope to finish it on time for the cowl. Before we follow up with my last whip, let's make a recap of my summer knitting plans. What did we do, what we didn't do, and overall how's the balance of it. So my first summer knitting plan was the Colette tee, and this one got finished, and it was a little bit troublesome in the process, but very satisfying as a finished object. I also planned to finish my 2 whips that were still pending from 2024, the Elvin blouse and the Hobbiton Junior vest, both by Fable Knitwear, and these 2 got done right in the beginning of the year. Then I had the 2-ply cabled cardigan, vintage 2-ply cable cardigan, which, as you saw, didn't go, but now it's going, so it's a whip still. Then we had my other vintage pattern that was planned to be knitted in the summer, my afternoon blouse from Modern Knitting Illustrated, and this one didn't even got to the videos. I swatched it out of camera. I didn't like it. I ripped the swatch from the first rows, and I decided it wasn't time for me to knit this summer. Maybe in a next one, I don't know, I'm not sure if I will knit it, but so it wasn't done. Then I mentioned that I was going to try to make a stash busting, and I knitted almost all that I did this year until now from stash, but it wasn't a complete stash busting because I already have to buy yarn to complement ongoing projects, and I have bought some yarns together with them, and so a lot of yarns entered my stash. So I can say that I did really make a stash busting, but I still focused in my stash. I still have stuff in the stash that will stay there because it's mostly summer yarns, and I won't be using summer yarns in the very close future, but we can make a video about my stash if you want. I'm needing actually to organize it, so we can make organizing my stash, and I can talk to you about what I plan to make with those ones. Well, then after this I had the Papillon Blouse, which you saw today, just finished, and a June top light, also finished today. Then we started the ones that I didn't touch: the Love Leather top by Sobakevich, the Chrysler top by Knitting for Olive, and the Camisole number 4 by My Favorite Things Knitwear. I didn't even swatch for them, I didn't even consider them, there wasn't time, okay, that's fine. Then there was this one, Isabella summer top, that I planned to make with the pink yarn Ibiza, but then I decided I was going to make with the purple yarn, this yarn, Glamour, because the recommended yarn had the same fibers that this one has. It didn't work for that, and then I decided to make the Wavy summer lace Cami. So I think we can consider that this project replaced that one. Although that other yarn is still going to keep in my stash, waiting for its turn. I considered making a self-drafted top with it, but let's see in the future. And then we had my temperature blanket, which is ongoing. It is working, it's going fine. I didn't feel the will to drop it completely. It has its ups and downs. Right now I'm not up to date with it because I need orange for the last few days and I don't have it. But as soon as I get the orange, I will rush and get it up to date so I can continue with this project, which I am enjoying. Overall, not a bad summer, I guess. Not a perfect summer either. As I said, I usually overestimate, so I think it's reasonable what we got done this time. And let me just jump in and ask, what about your summer or winter projects? Did you finish them? Did you not finish them? Which ones did you drop? Which ones you added impromptu? And tell me about it. I didn't add here the things that I have added to this list. There were a few crochet bandanas and a lot of things that I fixed in February. I think that's it for the year so far. I think we're ready to move to autumn and winter now. My final whip for today is probably the one that you are most curious about because it's very beautiful and many people have asked me about this one. It's my Avalon sweater. And here it is. If you have seen my autumn and winter knitting plans, you will notice that it did not move from there. I didn't advance from there. I'm still here just past the waist shaping, but it will soon become my priority. As soon as I finish this one, this will be my main knit. Of course, I think in the weekend I will be working in my temperature blanket. I want to wrap up the first trimester of this year and transform it into an actual blanket. But other than that, for knitting, this will be my next one. And the only thing that I made for it in the last week, since I made my last video, was to prepare yarn for the fourth thread. Because that's the issue I have with this project, to be honest, is the fact that I'm knitting it with very thin yarn. At first, when I started it, I didn't have a Swift and a ball winder. I'm happy to say that my boyfriend gave me a ball winder since then. You can see here working. I'm very satisfied with it. I have wrapped a lot of little skins with it, like this one, for example. Skins? I think this is a cake, right? I will show you this in a moment. But I have wrapped a lot of yarn with it. However, when I started it, I still didn't have the ball winder. So I was working with yarn I wrapped by hand, and at first I wrapped 2 skins, 2 balls, and I picked one thread from the inner side and one thread from the outer side of each to make my 4 threads. It turned out not a good idea. It worked fine for some rows and suddenly it became a tangled mess. A horrible tangled mess, of which the rest you can see here. I have unwrapped most of them by now and I have turned them into this. This is the cone in which this yarn was. But the thing is, when I was making those containers here, I didn't make a precise calculation of the quantity that I was wrapping. I just wrapped as much as I could until the yarn broke, and it made so that they end in different moments, right? The different threads end in different moments. For one side, it's good because when one ends, I don't lose the entire thing. I don't have to start again, I just add another thread. But it made this complicated situation here, which messed with my tension several times in this point. You can see it here, 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 here. Yes, one tip is escaping here. I will drop it there. In the back too, you can see there are several of these very ugly situations here, which of course from afar maybe you won't notice, but from up close I notice very clearly, and I don't love it. What's my plan? I can't stop it from happening because I'm working with 4 threads. There's no way to make it different. If I use it now, my ball winder, and created super solid huge chunks, 4, not 2 this time, and started again, maybe I could prevent it from happening, but I think I don't need to do that. My plan to solve this issue would be blocking at first, so the tension can even as much as it can on its own, and where it doesn't do, I will go with a crochet hook and manually arrange it, and if even this doesn't do, I will duplicate stitch them. I will duplicate stitch in some places where it's very obvious that there is a join there, and I will create a more normal stitch as duplicate stitch does, a regular stitch. That's what I plan to do in those places of joins. But I hope that now that I have a ball winder and that I have very much yarn here, I won't have to do it soon enough. And I hope that the next time you will see it, if not ready, at least with the body ready and the sleeves ongoing. That's it for now, and I'm loving this one, in spite of the tension issues. I only have now 2 swatches and future projects to show you. Well, let me start with this one. This one is my wool yarn, which I showed you in the autumn knitting plans. It was supposed to become my Sobakevich hat. As it's a crocheted project, I decided I was going to start right away because I don't have other crochet projects except for the temperature blanket, and crochet goes quicker. It wasn't supposed to be a swatch, it was supposed to be the actual hat, but as I'm experimenting with tension and everything, it is a swatch at the end. So this one, you can see it here, it's a single crochet circle and it will be the top of the hat. I want to make the top of the hat kind of like a basket, you know, those crochet baskets which are very cylindrical. So that's what I'm orienting myself towards. I tried to make the single crochets only through the back loop, but I didn't like it, so I unraveled it, and here it is going through both loops. And I also am following tutorials. I found some tutorials in the internet to give you a perfect circle, because apparently if you increase the circle always in the same spots, it will become more like a hexagon. It has some points. Here they offset the increases to make it smoother and to transform it into a perfect circle. Here I have, I think, 7 or 8 rows, and I will unravel it because the yarn recommends a 4.5mm hook. As I have tight tension and I had a 5mm hook at hand, I made this one with a 5mm hook. But you can see here that it's kind of flimsy and I want it to be the stiffer I can get. So I asked for the advice of some knitting and crocheting friends, and they said to me to use a 3.5mm. That's what I'm going to try to do. It's possible that it won't be as stiff as a basket would, but it is not going to be a basket, it's going to be a hat. So I'm fine with it being less stiff than a basket, but stiff enough that it won't lose its shape once we get it to the hat and everything. There's not much to talk about it yet. It's just a small a crochet hook, experimenting with hook size and stitch fabrication, then positioning, and I will soon unravel it and do it again with this one. And the last project that I have to talk to you about today, my last swatch, is this one. Very big, right? This time the swatch won't be able to lie to me being this big. I think I haven't broken the yarn, not in this one nor in any of the others that I have, because I don't break the yarn if I'm using acrylic and I won't need to block the swatch. I can then unravel the swatch and use it. The yarn is mole, colorway verde musgo, it's moss green, and this is the yarn that I had bought from my mom last year for her to make her vest. I tried to knit it with a 6mm and it was too stiff. She likes it very flimsy. You can see it's still very dense, it's not see-through and anything, but I made it in a 7mm needle. The yarn is quite thick, it's a worsted almost Aran, and I like how it is now. The gauge I got here was 14 stitches and 21 rows in 10 centimeters. Amazing gauge for a quick project, which is what I want this to be. That's why I started it. I wasn't going to start my vests until I finished the Avalon, but I decided to do it because I have a lot of things in smaller needles now. I would enjoy to have something in a bigger needle just for a change, to give my hands a rest and everything. I have also picked up her measurements, as I always do, following an advice I heard very early in my knitting career by Kutovakika. I do not measure the person, I measure a garment they love, and I use those measurements for reference because this garment will already have the ease that the person wants, and if I mimic that, they will be comfortable with the garment that I will be producing. Sometimes I don't make that for myself, but for other people I always make this. I took note of the measurements and I will start. I haven't cast on yet because I want to film the process of casting on this. I will use, as always, a tubular cast on, which I have used for this one too. This was quick because it's not so many stitches. This one will have over 100, so it will take me a little more, but then I will make some centimeters of ribbon. Since my mom wants it open, it will be flat, the entire piece in one thing. And yes, you will be seeing this in the next episode. So that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed seeing all those projects we have to show you. And well, tell me, what are you working on now? Did any of my projects interest you? Do you have something to comment, some advice to share regarding one of the things that I'm going to enter in right now? Yarn management and disguise intention issues and crochet a perfect circle, this kind of thing. Any advice is welcome. I love to talk to you guys. And I think let's wrap up for today then. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe if you enjoy this. If you know someone that might enjoy my videos, please send it to them. We're trying to grow a little bit to be heard for more people. And until the next week, be happy, be healthy, happy knitting. I see you in the next one. Bye bye.